Hi, good afternoon. So I'm happy to host this session on short communications about innovation. So we have 7 speakers today that will present their own projects, and we'll hear them, and we will have questions, Q&A session afterwards or right after the speaker. Whoever wants to ask something to the speakers might write it in the chat. I will be looking for some questions and I will ask them, don't worry. So we will start with Charlotte Gunner. Charlotte, do you want to present your project?
I think she was just having trouble at home. I could see her with her. Maybe you may want to move on to somebody else.
Okay. We'll see. We'll try to fix the technical issues. So we'll pass on to Fernando Salvetti.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Please, Gustavo, recall just how much time do I have?
Okay, so we'll have around 3-4 minutes, and then a small discussion time. Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much. But I can be very quick and try to be easy enough. The keyword is visualization. The topic is checklist. So mnemonic and checklist visualization. Something like what is in my virtual back screen right now. Usually we use a checklist and mnemonics in a paper shape. Usually we have into our pockets, or we have somehow like attached to a trolley, an emergency manual. Let's say into the US, a very famous emergency manual is the Stanford so-called Red Book, and usually is attached to a trolley. Means touching paper, means opening a book, visually surfing into the book, trying to go to the desired page. Let's say, go to pneumothorax event. You are at page 3, you have to reach page 129. Not easy, and cognitively, sometimes it's very challenging. From a team perspective, it's not only a cognitive challenge, sometimes could be part of a fixation error, or sometimes could be not so easy sharing knowledge among team members. So what we did in Boston with the Center for Medical Simulation mainly, and in Italy, Milano, within the Polytechnic School, the design department, we started designing and redesigning several times checklists and mnemonics. First of all, to design something as a software, to skip the paper. Second, to try to redesign, taking into consideration cognitive overload situations, trying to keep really simple what we were trying to redesign. Means, for instance, if someone of you is familiar with the Stanford Red Book, the emergency manual, that is very interesting, is very rich. In our opinion, sometimes is too rich. Too many written words, too many pages, and an only way to reach your desired page, your desired checklist, by the flick of your hand, could be very challenging, mainly into a war setting. So basically, we redesigned 3 times the same checklist, following different multimedia partners and different graphic styles, trying to be easy to be understood by different people with different cognitive styles. And what we did, we started projecting onto walls or into screens, big projections, the checklist, and we allowed the simulationistas to interact vocally with the checklist or to interact by gesture shaping, not necessarily by touching the electronic version. Thinking about vocal commands mainly into an OR setting could be better. At the end, we are still trying to compare and to understand what we are doing, because it is not easy understanding if we are doing something useful or not. By the way, and just in case you were interested, I can easily share images and a few recordings from our simulation setting. So in case of interest, you could take a look directly about what we are doing in terms of design, redesign, and knowledge visualization. In my opinion, it's all. I hope to having been able to make myself at least understandable a little bit. Please ask me if you have questions. I will try to provide answers.
Okay. Thank you, Fernando. That's a very interesting way to use cognitive aids, and I think does anyone have a question for Fernando or not? I think it's easier if we ask the questions right after the presentation. So if anyone has a question, because I have one. No? So I really find that interesting because, as you said, looking for books, for a huge book, the algorithm that you want, it's in a stressful situation, it's a nightmare for sure. My question is, what difficulties are you expecting from the clinical application? So if you're going to apply that in the OR, what difficulties are you expecting?
Many people, they do not trust at all on checklist. So first of all, why we should use checklist and mnemonics? Second, why in such a way? Could be counterintuitive, difficult, why we should project or display into monitors something that we can keep into our pockets. Third, the graphic design. So really, this is our focal point. Trying to understand if there is a better outlook, a better visualization, good enough for all the team, not only for someone from the team. Mm-hmm. So at least those three.
Okay. Thank you, Fernando.
My pleasure.
That was a great, it's a great project, and I'm looking for your application. So, Charlotte, are you okay with the technical issues? Probably not. Okay, let's go to the second presentation. So I will invite, sorry if I murder your names, Xavi Lakisian. Xavi, can you present your project now?
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Xavi from Beirut, and I want to present our process of designing our simulation lab or facility at a tertiary academic hospital in urban Beirut. So as we all know, simulation itself, like we know it, we use it, but designing a space for it is a whole other ballgame, especially as it mimics reality or the realities of healthcare, but it is essentially a learning space. So what we wanted to do in our design is to have that in mind and design a lean flowing layout so that we can have multiple users, learners, facilitators, everyone in the lab simultaneously without any interruptions or disruptions to the learning processes. So our aim in this paper was to describe our experience, how we involved multiple stakeholders from several disciplines, including engineering, education, and how we came about the design that we settled on at the end. Now, the lab is around 600 meters squared. We base our study or the paper on the blueprints that we went through several times and what we settled on at the end. And we also developed a semi-structured interview guide so that we can talk to all the stakeholders involved in the design so that we can see how they went through it, what their perceptions were of how the process went, and obviously what they would do differently if they could have a second go. So if you actually see the presentation on my page, you're going to notice that I included the blueprint of the lab as well. And in there, you'll notice that the lab is divided into three essential parts. Part A, or the front stage, as we call it, is the reception area, the administrative offices, the server room, and the two classrooms that we had. Now, that we have. The classrooms are also the debriefing rooms, and all the walls we used in the simulation center were collapsible or foldable walls so that we can have the spaces be used for different number of individuals and for different purposes. The second area, which was a dedicated simulation space, is basically three multi-purpose simulation rooms and a central control room. The simulation rooms were designed based on an ICU, an OR, and an emergency room, but they can alternate with different specialties, different age groups. And the centralized control room was important so that the facilitators can monitor several simulations as they're taking place, and we can also have several different learner groups working in the lab at the same time. And the backstage was the storage rooms and the locker rooms. And storage was very, very important to us because the current lab that we were using alongside the nursing school had problems with storage. So all our part test trainers, we didn't have a lot of space to locate them and everything. So this was very important when we were designing the new lab. So when we were talking with our biomedical engineers and the architects involved in the design process, they mentioned that they went through several layouts, like the star shape, the circular, or the rectangular model, to decide which one would fit our learner objectives best. So we settled on the star shaped, which has, like I mentioned before, centralized control room and all the simulated areas or the simulation areas around it. And it also provides an uninterrupted flow of learners and facilitators. So when we were talking with the stakeholders, these three topics emerged. First and foremost, the organization of the space and how everything was structured, especially for the architects and the engineers. This was very important. And then on the other hand, the educators were very much interested in how the students are going to be interacting with the space. Next, the equipment, obviously everything we're going to need to furnish a space that size, and also the simulators and the simulation equipment that we would need to use. And then finally, the staff and the human resources we might need for a space like this and how to run a space like this. So obviously there's no one style fits all, right? So this is not sort of like a prototype that will work for every academic institution designing a lab, but hopefully an institution or a center that has similar learner needs or learning objectives may benefit from our experience for designing a lab. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, please ask.
Thank you, Zavi. Does anyone want to question something?
I have one, and it's about virtual augmented mixed reality equipment. Are you envisaging to use those type of equipment inside the simulation center?
Thank you. Well, we are, but not for now, especially given the cost analysis for using VR. We do have a space allocated for it, but currently we're planning on using it for OBGYN and labor and delivery simulations, and then maybe later on that can move to one of the other multi-purpose simulation rooms, and then we can have another area for VR.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Any more questions?
I just wanted to say thanks for the presentation, and also I'm amazed at the idea of having facilitators monitoring more than one simulation at the same time. I think that would completely blow my mind. But my only real question is, because it really resonated with me, are you happy with your storage now? Because it's a nightmare for us as well.
Well, do you want to know a secret?
Yes.
Yeah, so the lab isn't up and running yet. So I'll let you know where we are with that as soon as it is.
Storage is always a nightmare. It is. So thank you, Xavi. It was very nice to know your new simulation center. I hope we can have some more stories from it and more projects presented from it. Thank you. So Charlotte, now we have Charlotte. Yes. Okay, Charlotte, you can present your project, please.
Sorry to have not been able to present the first two times, but I'm free now. So hi everybody, thanks for inviting me. My project is about teaching video consultation skills to medical students. Now this project was conceived actually quite fortuitously pre-pandemic, so we're talking 2 years ago. This was cooked up and it was sort of all rounded up just as COVID hit, and then suddenly became very, very relevant. So I live in the Highlands of Scotland, and we've been using video consultation here for about 10 years on a much lower scale than is happening now. But it's something that we'd realised was happening a lot, but we weren't teaching our medical staff about, our medical students and any other part of communication skills we teach medical students about. But this was suddenly, we realised this was a complete kind of untaught area. So for a master's project in medical education, I set about looking into what had been already done, what work had been done on teaching video consultation skills to medical students, and set about arranging some teaching for our students. So to find facts at the beginning, I did a systematic review, a semi-systematic review, to find any literature that was relevant. A sort of very potted summary. There's not very much published on this. That is published talks about the change in what's been taught over the past 10 years or so since this has really been a thing. How does it fit into the curriculum, and some novel suggestions of how to introduce this into the curriculum as well. I interviewed some local consultants who use video consultation, and I surveyed our clinician users of video consultation as well to ask what they thought was relevant to teach our medical students. And just to sort of talk very briefly about what that survey showed, the most useful bits really were when I asked those clinician users, so that it wasn't just doctors, it'd be doctors, other allied healthcare professionals, speech and language therapists, dietitians. I asked them, what would you teach to somebody who was learning to do this? And they focused very much on communication skills. So speaking clearly over the video, how to explain what happens in a video consultation to a patient, being aware of what your body language is when you're not actually in a room with a patient, and then how to bring a video consultation to a close as well. So using all of this, I designed a teaching session. Now this was designed as a 2-hour session to be delivered in person to medical students, although this has since been adapted to be delivered online for obvious reasons. And this covers a basic introduction and then is split into small groups to rotate round 3 practical stations. And these stations cover technology, so looking at the setup and watching some example videos that I made with some colleagues. A good example of an ideal video consultation, and then one that's not going so well. How to choose patients for video consultation and some of the ethical issues surrounding that, and then giving the students a chance to have a go at a simulated video consultation. So all the students that attended had a chance to run this twice before the pandemic hit, and had 40 students coming through, and got them to fill in some evaluation forms. Basically, they felt that it was really relevant. Their confidence increased significantly before and after the session in terms of fulfilling various statements that I gave them. Things like, how do you rate your confidence in being able to identify a patient suitable for a video consultation? So I asked that question before and then again afterwards. In all these domains, they increased their confidence, and they felt it was very useful for their future. And they liked the interactive style. They really liked the simulation. I also ran a couple of OSCEs, to try and objectively assess their video consultation skills before and after they'd taken part in this session. It was quite tricky to set this up, but we slotted it into an already existing OSCE and just did one video consultation station where they had to take history from a patient over video. We had some technical issues, which is ironic, but it's how things go. But it did work, and their skills relating to video consultation increased after the teaching session, which you would expect. They also, interestingly, they really liked having a video consultation station in their OSCE. I thought maybe the students might not like that because it was something kind of thrown at them that they weren't expecting, but actually they felt it was relevant and it reflected the working environment that they were used to. So I've modified the teaching session a bit based on some of the feedback, and it's being rolled out across the whole of the final year group for our local students. I was in the process of trying to roll this out through other medical schools in the UK, through the UK Council of Clinical Communication, but then I went on maternity leave and it's been slightly complicated, so I didn't manage to do that, but I'm hoping to pick that up again at some point. I'm also written a paper about it and I'm trying to get it published, and that's sort of where I am at the moment. So I'm very welcome to take questions.
Thank you, Charlotte. Any question for Charlotte? Okay.
I can see somebody's typed a question.
Yeah. Stella just stated that she's working in Doha in Weill Cornell Medical School, and they started a video telemedicine teaching to medical students using Zoom. And she would like to highlight the excellent toolkit for video consultation with empathy developed by the Academy for Communication in Healthcare, ACH Online. We have recently added into this a module on how to tackle health literacy barriers using video consultation. And she would like to collaborate with you, so...
That sounds good.
That sounds good. Really good. I have one question that, do you, there in the UK, clinicians usually do video consultations, or is it the majority rural doctors, like general practitioners and family doctors, or also hospital doctors?
That's a really interesting question, and if you'd asked that question a year ago, the answer would be very, very different from what it is now. So when I did all the research for this project, which is now kind of 2 years ago, video consultation was something that was happening in the background, something that's happening more up here in the Highlands of Scotland, where geography is prohibitive for patients to attend hospital easily. So we were probably using it more than anywhere else in the country in terms of consultations per 100,000 population. Mm-hmm. Around that time, some of the stuff in the press was Matt Hancock, the health secretary, had been wanting video consultation to be increased, and then there was quite a bit of skepticism about some general practice video consultation services that were set up that were kind of taking all of the easy cases, patients who were young and were used to the technology, and setting up a GP practice that was based only on video consultation. But then anybody who had something complex or was elderly, was pregnant, wasn't allowed. So it was basically taking all of the easy stuff, getting the money for it, and punting the other stuff off to elsewhere. Anyway, so that gave it a bit of a bad reputation. I'd need to look at the figures now, but I know there's been an absolutely massive increase in video consultation since the pandemic, and I can see a lot of nods there. I think everybody probably agrees with that. Certainly in this past year, I've been a patient or a parent on the other end of having a video consultation, which was never even really offered before. So, and I think it is really good when used in the right way.
Yeah, for sure. And I think video consultation is very useful, especially in those not that complex patients and low accessibility to hospitals. For example, here in Portugal, the Ministry of Health is now implementing a program that you can go to the how's it called? The hall, the city hall, and there you can have you can appoint through the internet or via a text message. You can appoint a consultation with your GP, and then you go to the city hall. You have a small cabin, and you can have the consultation there. This is mainly for the people that don't have access to a computer or a smartphone or something like that. But you can also do it through your phone, So if young people that are used to have smartphones and video conferences and whatever, they can do it at home right now. So
yeah, we have something similar in. Sorry to interrupt. We have something similar in the Highlands, where there are rooms set up in GP surgeries scattered across the Highlands specific for video consultation. So the whole idea is that it's not excluding people who don't have the technology or the finances to, or the internet connection, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Xavi. Sorry, I will murder your name again. Zevolod, he asks if he can present the next. Is it okay for you all? Okay, you can present it, your presentation. Right, we can't hear you. Just a moment. Okay, now we can hear you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Zevolod. I'm from Moscow, and my report about the bundle courses in the focus settings. For Russia, this is new point of care ultrasound training, because for years only ultrasound guys take the probes and walk in. For today, our simulation center in Moscow, in Botkinskaya Hospital, built the first focus courses with different ways, and we get 2 ways. It's about intervention and about diagnostic courses with focus protocols. We built a structure of courses from simple to complex, and first it was vascular access by ultrasound guided, and then we grow the courses for the diagnostic scenarios. And for now we have more than 8 courses in the different ways. We build the team for 3 years working. We take the more than 8 trainers who work on this direction. And in the past, in the 2019, I go to the Madrid and take the part in the cadaver course for YESRA and about the regional anesthesia. For today, the growing of this interest in focus settings, we take opportunity to scale the courses for pandemic situation in the Russia, and we rebuilt courses for COVID hospitals, and the topics of these courses, of course, lung ultrasound for COVID patients. It's built in the some scenarios, take the 4 parts, and it's a go for 1 day. After these courses, we see a lot of interesting from the doctors, and one of the interesting it's this training gives the doctors opportunities to fight against the professional burnout, and for these days we see a lot of interesting from the another clinicians like therapeutic or family medicine physicians who interest in this way. And we have the Facebook page, the YouTube channel with webinars and all this work. I think it's a new and good way to expand this new for Russia focus settings and give a lot of references for patients and doctors who work with this point of care ultrasound technology. It's all about my presentation.
Thank you. Any questions for Vsevolod? No, I have just one question. Is what's the next step for you in your simulation center?
Yeah, the next step we look around the Vexus score. It's new focus trend with organ perfusion, and we think about the advanced trauma life support courses for Russia, because Russia is one of the countries who don't have the ATLS courses.
I lost you, Vsevolod. I don't know why.
I think this is the future for our situation.
Can you hear Vsevolod? Oh, it's just me.
Hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Okay, I can't hear you.
I think it's all.
Can any other person talk?
Yeah, can you hear me, Gustavo? This is Danny.
Nope.
Can everyone else hear me? So it's just Gustavo who can't hear us.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and now we can't hear him.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Carmen Fernandez Panadero. I am a physicist and I work at the Telematics Engineering Department at Carlos III University in Madrid. But the main driver of this work is Marta Vidaurreta and her team from the Nursing School of the University of Navarra. The focus of our work has been to develop a low escape room to motivate the student to face the theoretical content of the subject. And the point is the locals here. In general, students, as you know, are much more motivated to learn the practical content and the transversal skills than to tackle with the theoretical content. So the two keys are the locals and the theoretical content. And in ecology is one of the areas of knowledge where simulation-based learning has been applied most successfully for both for technical and transversal skills. And we have seen a lot of amazing examples of this during these days. But this work presents an escape room to increase motivation of nursing students facing theoretical content about obstetrics and gynecology. And our main findings have been that, firstly, that it is possible to increase students' motivation with this type of simple activities that do not require many resources, just some printed blood tests and boxes of medication and some cheap items such as logs, flashlights, and things like that. And secondly, it is another way to practice transversal skills such as communication and teamwork. And finally, it is allowed the student to become familiar with the simulation center, distribution of the space and the materials that they will have to use in other simulation practice. And this allows us to slightly reduce the pre-briefing time in other more technical simulation. And more or less, that's all from Spain. And now if there is any question.
I have a question. I don't know if Gustavo is back with us, but I was interested to know, why do you think the motivation increased? Was it because it was fun, because it was a game, because it was just unusual and new? Why do you think it helped motivation?
Well, I think there is several factors. One of them is that they can see the theoretical content in context, because there is a case behind all of this. And also, they use this content in a real site. It's a simulation center, but it looks like a professional. It's their first time in a professional space. And it's fun, but they are young people have a lot of fun with the devices, and they do escape room much more motivating than this one in their free time. But yes, but it's very interesting for them for this. It's theory in context with the themes. It's more stressful than fun, but they learn a lot, because, and also you press them to learn the content for this date when you have to do the escape room. So they study hard for the experience.
It makes memories. The stress can be useful, I guess.
Yes. We can't hear you, Gustavo. Sorry. You appear to be mute in the platform.
No. Is Galina next? Shall we just carry on?
Okay. So thank you.
Hi, I'm very glad to see you and take part in our conference. It's very important for me. I'm from Russia, from Almazov National Medical Center, and it's very important for us how we can organize education of medical student. And I think that student should have skills and habits, self-directed learning. It's very important, because in our curriculum, more than 30% of the all time is self-directed learning in all disciplines, basic disciplines, fundamental disciplines, general medicine disciplines, and other. So it's very important. And when we start our lesson, we state problem for all medical students, and we tell them about how can they do their lesson and home work. So we give him checklist and different educational lesson on portal, educational portal, video presentation, and many didactic materials. And we tell that they should self-direct learning, because we have 3 principles today in our education: self-directed learning, problem-based learning, and teamwork learning. And this result is very important. Also we try give him different task in simulation center, when we can do self-direct learning when they use equipment in simulation center with feedback, and it's help our students resolve clinical decision, and very often we use interbody act and other equipment in the center. So it's very important because it's associated with a level of education and result of education. So that's very briefly, that's all. Gustavo, I can't hear you.
He's asking if anyone's got any questions.
I can't hear you, but I can add that students start education in the first course of education. They faced into a big problem, big volume of information, change of social condition, and many other. And I think that it's very important give him this habit and skills of self-direct learning.
It's the hardest thing to teach, getting people to teach themselves.
Yes.
Okay, we've got, what, 2 minutes left. Is there anyone else to present apart from me? Okay, the 5-minute presentation is on the website, but I'll quickly explain what we did in 45 to 60 seconds if I can. Good afternoon from London, by the way. I work at Barts Health in London in the Education Academy. So we looked at how medical students were reacting to the simulation that we ran, particularly in their final year of medical school, and how that would help them when they start practice, if it would or if it wouldn't. I think often we just assume that simulation is good, because it is, no, but it's good to check. So we were interested in whether it reduced anxiety about starting to practice clinically, whether it increased their confidence, but also whether the simulation, because this is often their first experience of simulation, whether it was more stressful than they expected it to be or less stressful, and whether it met their expectations in terms of making them more confident. It was a very small study. We were also interested, though, in the difference, because we run 2 types of simulation, just the classic in-center simulation in the simulation center, but we also run a in-situ type project for the medical students, where they're running around the hospital and doing different things in different places. I've got 30 seconds. To be brief, anxiety was reduced from before and after surveys, but we didn't get statistical significance. Confidence increased, and we did get some statistical significance in those results. And interestingly, more so in situ simulation than in the simulation we ran in the center. Unfortunately, the simulation that we ran in situ in the hospital itself was also more stressful for the students than in the center. But maybe that's partly why it helped their confidence once they got through it. And in terms of meeting expectations of simulation for these students, their confidence was increased as much as they had hoped it would be. But again, the in situ type of simulation in the hospital for real increased their confidence even more than they thought it would. But I have to say, it was a very small study. We only had about 20 students. I think but it was reassuring for us and something we'd like to repeat maybe once this pandemic is done with, because we ran this immediately before with the pandemic. What we don't know, what I'm particularly interested in, is whether this effect will last for some time. I always think it's really nice to get to go back to participants 6 months later and see if they even remember the simulation and whether it's affected them. And of course, it's interesting that in situ simulation seems to have a bigger impact, which is perhaps common sense for many of us. Thank you. Do we have any questions? Oh, we don't have any time.
Okay. Daniel have one question in the chat. Transition period, like maybe you can read it because I can't see.
Yes, okay, I can see. Are we thinking? So he's asking about other transitions. So not just medical students to practice, but transitions like going from foundation training in the UK to specialty training. Yes, I think that would be interesting. And are we looking at those transitions? I think particularly the switch to registrar is one that there's a lot of interest in when people become the medical registrar, which is, I don't know, it's a hallmark of British medicine, and it's the doctor responsible for receiving all the patients into the hospital overnight. We would be interested in looking at those transitions. I think what was particularly interesting for us with this pilot project was looking at people who'd never done a simulation before, not a real one, and to see what their reaction as students were, and whether, because I know when I first did a simulation as a student, I found it terrifying and I hated it. And I was just wondering if that was repeated with other people. But yes, those transition points and the use of simulation are really important. Okay. Oh, poor Gustavo. Thank you for comparing it as best you could. We'll wave at you. Lovely to meet. Lovely to meet everyone. I have to go to another session. Bye bye.